This is important stuff
for you to know.
Welcome to the show. This is Tony.
And this is Javier.
This is the show where we talk about what we believe may be important stuff.
But in the end, it's for you to decide.
Welcome back, everybody. Javier, I want to talk about a topic that is on the minds of a lot of people, certainly internationally. Poverty. We're a compassionate world, a compassionate nation. There are many problems throughout the world, but in the world you have international foundations and organizations in other countries supplying food to underdeveloped countries so that people can eat. Going back to an original concept, just in the U.S., I remember the Peace Corps. Their concept was to go in and not just provide food, but actually try to teach some skills to these people in populations and overcome the poverty so that these people could actually learn a skill and produce food so they can continue to eat. Let's go ahead and discuss the key areas of poverty as we see it. What do you think about poverty?
Well, Tony, first, I think that we have to agree on a definition of what poverty is. It may surprise you what I'm going to say, but I think poverty, it's relative. It depends on the perspective of the person who is using that term.
Wait, let me interrupt you for a moment here. Relative. Javier, poverty is poverty. I think poverty exists regardless of the person that's defining it by some artificial measures. But poverty is a person without the basic elements of life, food, shelter, clothing. Don't you see it that way also? Or?
Well, again, it depends on what you define by, and we can go back and forth on this conversation. But it all depends what you mean by food, clothing, and shelter. Because you have people in villages in Africa who have a shelter, even though it's a mud house. They have clothing that they probably made themselves. I don't know what kind of fabric. They have water. Maybe it's not the kind of water that you would drink, but it's a water that it's hydrating them and keeping them alive. So, I mean, I think I mean relative because it all depends on the environment.
So do these people in Africa fall under the category of poverty? Because it sounds like they're surviving.
Again, I mean, yes, they fall into the statistic of the World Bank and the International Food and I forgot the name of the foundation, where they generate a lot of statistics about poverty and hunger and so on. But to them, maybe that isn't the case. And I mean relative because you have to compare yourself, your condition to somebody else's. And I give you one example that may surprise you again. I don't know if you remember, recently in the news there was a story of a young man in his late 20s, I believe, who was able to escape from North Korea. He had been born and lived all his life in a labor camp in North Korea. His parents were imprisoned there.
I recall seeing that.
He was born there, and he had, I don't know in what conditions he lived, but obviously he survived. He was able to escape. He looked to be in good shape, so he was probably eating enough calories to keep him healthy. He had a place to live. Again, so for him, he said when finally escaped to South Korea and he was interviewed, he said, "I thought this was all there was about life, living in a prison camp," because he could not compare his condition to somebody else's. So that's what I mean. It's relative. He was not eating a hamburger or a pizza. He was just eating something that was given to them, but that's all he knew. So he did not feel himself to be a poor person.
Did he fall under the category of poverty?
Oh, certainly, he was part of the statistics that are provided by these health organizations of the United Nations and so on, and the World Bank probably. where yes, he probably was earning less than the average, and maybe he would fall. I mean, in the category of uneducated, minimal sanitary conditions and so on. But he didn't know better because he could not compare his condition to somebody else's.
But wasn't his situation, his condition, an imposed poverty? Imposed, whether it's by a government or an organization, it's a created poverty. The example you gave in Africa, you and I talked recently about an excellent book that is out there that addresses this. What when you say it's relative, who's making that decision, and what's the error that we have when we think we're being compassionate and we want to help people that fall in poverty? Are they really in poverty? Well, why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Well, two
story?
things. I don't think we have to introduce into discussion what originated poverty. The fact is that some people may perceive themselves to live in poverty because they can see their surroundings where other people live better. But if you don't know what poverty means because you cannot compare it to anybody else, it doesn't matter if it was imposed or not, because you don't know what it is. So the
true.
origin, I think the origin is not. I don't think it pertains to our discussion now. Maybe that would be a political issue, more than a social issue or economic issue. So I would rather not get into that. But what you're saying is that yes, people go into the less developed world. A lot of organizations, whether they're national or supranationals, who they go out to help them because they consider those people to live in less
less fortunate situation
exactly
than others.
Right. Okay. And so they feel that they have to go and help them, and I honestly trust the good intentions of all those organizations. Now, are they doing it in the right way? That is the question.
Yes, because the result isn't always what they expected, and sometimes we think we're doing the right thing, but again, we are making a judgment about poverty. There is a better way.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned. I'm sure you were talking when you mentioned the book that we had discussed before some time ago. It's that book by Ernesto Ciroli, that famous gentleman who lives in the U.S. Of Italian origin, who lived in Africa for about 30 years. He wrote a book. It's called The Ripples from the Zambezi. It's a story about a little hamlet in Zambia that lived on the riverbanks of the Zambezi River. And he was working for some international foundation, and he went there to help this village, the people in this village, to improve their living conditions, especially their from a nutrition point of view. And when they went into the village and they saw this hamlet, this village right next to the river, and that the ground between the river and the village was so fertile that they said, we got to plant something for you. And so they taught them how to plant tomatoes, and they spent months explaining them, the benefits, the nutritional benefits of tomatoes, how to plant them, how to grow them, how to cook them, and so on. And they spent quite a bit of time doing that, and people in the village were listening. So they planted the tomatoes, and the people from this foundation left. And they came back a year later. And guess, what would you expect that they found when they came back?
Well, I would expect their intention was to go in and help the people. They planted the crops. They did what they said. The people would have a huge crop of tomatoes to feed, supplement their food supply.
I'm sorry to disappoint you, Tony, but actually it was a shock to them when they came back a year later.
What did they find?
Mud, and it was just a mess. There was no crop. There was nothing there. It was a complete waste. Okay, it was terrible, and they were in shock, and they went up to the village elder or the chief, and they said, "What happened? We taught you how to plant tomatoes here." And you know what the guy answered?
What?
Well, but you didn't teach us how to get rid of hippopotamus. It turns out that the hippopotamus, when they saw the tomatoes, okay, they just went from the water and they ate all the crops. Okay, and so a year was wasted, and all the time that they were trained, because they did not realize, they did not understand a lot of the things, the conditions in which these people were living. Right.
So what's missing with these good intentions of these foundations, these organizations that go out to feed people that are in poverty? What is Ernesto Sorelli talking about? What's missing? What did they forget? What piece?
I think the key, and this is a great message that he sends. Actually, he wrote two books, and which are, to me, are really eye opening, and to realize how much money it's wasted often by foundations who are trying to do good and going to these less developed countries. The message is that you have to understand the environment in which the people live, the culture, the tradition, the habits, the topography, the geography, everything, because you may be surprised. I mean, I'm sure that they did not realize that the hippopotamus were so close that eventually they would go in and eat the tomatoes and destroy the crops. They didn't realize that, and they didn't ask probably the right questions to the village people about, the conditions. How do they relate with their environment? What happens with not only hippopotamus, it could have been buffaloes, it could have been other things. So the message is, before you start investing a lot of money and time and talent, send somebody, visit the villages, talk to the people, ask the right questions, and create a model that probably would have a high chance of success.
What a model of what they need, not what you believe they need. It moves us to what I think is a strong solution to situations of poverty, rather than just feed a population for a day, and rather than only teach them a skill. We can begin to develop a sense of entrepreneurship at a very basic level with the people. But here's my concern. The level of education of an impoverished population has to affect how much you can teach them. How much really can they learn? What level can you take them to?
You're going to kill me. Again, I have to tell you that I think education is relative. And this is the third time that I mentioned that, and many times before in other conversations. Education, again, it's relative. And I would throw it back at you. What do you mean by education?
Well, education, I think, generally speaking, is an expanded understanding and knowledge outside of your daily life and living and daily environment, an expanded sense, whether it's in mathematics, science, literature. I would think that's probably a general education.
To live an enlightened life, I mean, to know more about the world and your surroundings and so on, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's fair.
Well, now I ask you the following: would that help a desert man running from a lion in Africa to know about Aristotle, or having read Hemingway, or knowing about the Middle Ages and Gutenberg and so on? Would that help him?
Probably not if he's running from a lion.
Okay. Well, let's take this a little farther. Okay, you are a very educated person, and I know that for a fact. And let's say that I drop you in a helicopter in the Kalahari Desert in Africa. Okay, and you, with your nice polo shirt and probably your New Balance shoes, and I don't know what else you would like to carry.
Maybe I can take a Swiss knife for survival.
Good. Maybe even the knife, and I'll give you also machete. I don't know if it's going to help you running, trying to get rid of that lion that is chasing you. But let's say you have all the goodies that you need, that you just mentioned, and I drop you in the desert. What do you think are your chances of survival vis-a-vis a Kalahari desert man?
Well, I would have to learn about that environment and how to, where that desert man. I feel like I'm being set up here, Javier.
Well,
There's a story here, and I know there's a point. Let's
yeah.
go.
Well, in a way, yes. I mean, you say I need to learn, Tony. You don't have a chance. You don't have time to learn. You can live probably maybe 1 or 2 weeks in the desert without food, but I don't think you can make it 2 days without water. So you have to find water immediately. I don't think your Swiss knife is going to help you much to find water. Now, probably the Kalahari man has a better chance. And I would urge you to watch a movie that I saw many years ago. It's a documentary. I don't know if it's true or not, but what the message that they send is this what I'm telling you. Is how the Kalahari Desert people find water. And it's a very interesting story.
Okay, let's hear it. I
Yeah.
knew this was a setup.
Well,
Let's hear it. I want to learn something here.
well, this is a story of how well it's a long movie, but just this part of the movie I thought it was fascinating. Here is a group of men. They're walking in the desert and they see a chimpanzee up in a tree. In front of the chimpanzee, a few yards away, there is an anthill with a hole about the size of a hand.
Okay.
And they have little leather pouches, okay, and they have in the pouches they have like chunks of salt,
Like rock salt.
and they put a lot of those rock salts in the anthill, in the hole, through the hole, okay, and they just sit away and wait to see what happens.
What, the rock salt turns into water in the anthill?
No,
What
sir.
does the anthill?
Well, you'll see now. After a few hours, okay, the curiosity of the chimpanzee, I mean, it's overwhelming to him. And so he gets off the tree, he goes towards the anthill, he sticks his hand, feels the rock of salt, and grabs them. When he tries to take his hand out, he cannot, because with the rocks in his hands, the hand is too big to get it out of the hole. So he gets desperate and he starts pulling and pulling without realizing that all he has to do is let go of the rock. And he keeps holding the rock and going around in circles like a helicopter around the anthill. And in the meantime, the desert people go up to a chimpanzee, they catch him, they tie a rope on the chimpanzee, okay, to a tree, and they hide. They wait for a while, and after a few hours, because of the salt, and the chimpanzee has not taken any water, he's very thirsty. So, and you can tell that the chimpanzee is thirsty by the way it's behaving, and it's crying. So they go up and they cut the rope, let free the chimpanzee, and the chimpanzee starts running. And they run right behind the chimpanzee. And guess where the chimpanzee goes?
He leads them to a water source.
Exactly. Underground water. So that's how they find the water. That is not taught to them in any school, in any university, not even on online courses.
Now, they know, which I didn't know. I guess I could have considered it, but a primary source of a chimpanzee's food is ants.
Because, yes, that's a lot of protein.
They hunt a lot of protein.
Uh-huh.
They put their arms in and extract ants, and
And also from the bark of trees, they also get the ants, the red ants, and eat them.
Great story. So what is your point? I knew there was a setup.
Well, my point is that you say that when people, these aid foundations go into places, and they not only want to help them, for example, grow a crop or learn how to fish or how to build something, they also want to teach them something. But you say that education is very limited. Okay, so I'm saying it's relative, because it's the education that they have is sufficient for them to survive in the environment in which they live. It doesn't help them, like I said, to have read poetry, literature, stochastic models. It doesn't help them because they don't need that in the environment in which they live. So it's all relative.
Point taken. Point taken. Excellent story to prove about education. Now, that brings us to my original question. The suggestion to help these people overcome a level of poverty, to sustain life, entrepreneurship, an entrepreneurship model, which requires some education, some learning. So you're saying educate them within their own learning environment, help them by understanding their environment better. How do you see entrepreneurship, or how do you define the entrepreneurship as being a methodology to help overcome some measures of poverty, or to help people discover new ideas?
Well, definitely there is room to teach entrepreneurship, but you cannot drop from the sky a model of entrepreneurship that is applicable in Denmark, Sweden, Germany, the US, Canada, Mexico, because it may not be adaptable to the level of knowledge and education that they have, and it's going to backfire, or it will be so overwhelming that they will not learn it. What I'm saying is that you have to develop a model of entrepreneurship that is adequate to the education and the training that they have, but which will allow them to grow, to progress, and eventually, through the years, maybe catch up with other more developed countries. But it has to grow based on a model, on a basic model that is adequate to the environment and to what they know.
So are you suggesting we go in there and we teach them how to build flat panel televisions, or how do you see it developing?
Well, we go back to what Ciroli said. Go in, find out what they know. Number one, find out what they need. You have to know what they need. I mean, maybe what you need is not what they need, because they have different values, they have different needs, they have different expectations. So you have to find out what they need, and then you can suggest maybe a better ways for them to conduct their lives. And entrepreneurship is one of them. Don't depend on foreign aid. Don't depend on the government. You can make your own things. But I will not teach them how to do a flat screen TV. I will teach them how to drill for a water well, for example, how to use windmills, like the famous windmill, the windmill man from Africa, which is another beautiful story.
Mm-hmm.
I will teach them how to build with materials that they can get in their own surroundings, and not have to depend on some foreign organization to bring in cement or concrete or whatever. So I would teach them how they can build a better life for them and a better environment with what they have.
What if they already have an interesting and proven method of drilling for water, or already have an interesting method that they discovered of a windmill to generate power, or whatever their needs are? If you, through your questioning, through asking rather than imposing, you found they have ideas.
Of course they do. And if you come with an open mind to benefit from what you're suggesting, to benefit from what these people are doing, because they may do something that makes a lot of sense and that you never thought about it. And that's what learning is. Okay, not just learn what they're trying to teach you in the schools, but go out into the world and find out where, what maybe 6 billion people do it different than the way you do. And if we do that, if we have this cross-pollination of ideas and experiences, we probably could have a much better world than we have today, without trying to impose systems, traditions, and our cultures.
Yeah, that's a powerful point, isn't it? Imposing systems on cultures.
Exactly.
It's a much softer way to bring it out. I love your point, and I'm going to let you wrap it up here. Your point on coming in and asking the question, finding out what they need, understanding their environment, and maybe they already have great ideas. And how will you help them to take these ideas and make it into a revenue source or a food source or help them improve their way of life? How will you help them get their ideas to other people that can benefit from that
Well,
particular idea?
initially, I think the goal is for them to learn something new before they can start conveying their knowledge to other villages or other people or other countries. I mean, that's a stage that it's far away from what we're talking at this moment. What they should do is begin to learn, because they are very creative people to survive under those conditions in which they live. They're very creative. You mentioned the windmills, and there's another great story about a kid that invented a device with batteries and lights to keep away the lions from the villages. The lions would come in at night and take people for food.
Mm-hmm.
And there was no way for them to prevent. Only the lions would not go into the village if they saw a person walking around with a flashlight, because they knew that that person probably had a weapon. So the lions would stay away from them, but that meant that few people would not sleep at night. So this little kid, I think he was like 12, he conceived a device powered by batteries, okay, with cables and lights that he got from, I forgot where, light bulbs. And he put them in the fences all around the village. And they had a system that the lights would turn on and off to simulate that the person was walking around with a flashlight. After that system was implemented in that village, they never had a situation where a lion came into the village at night. So, I mean, that shows you that they are very creative people. And I'm only talking, for some reason, I got involved only in examples about Africa. Well, we had also one in North Korea. But this happens all over the world. People are very creative. And we can benefit from that interaction with them. We bring in some ideas, we take back some of their ideas. And that way, the whole world is going to be a better place to live for everybody.
Great wrap up there, Javier. Great topic. We're going to go ahead and pause momentarily. I want to put a few questions out there to some people. What do you think about entrepreneurship as it applies to poverty? You heard Javier explain some practical solutions. Send us an email, give us a call, send us a message with your questions. Let us know. We'll address them in the next show. We'll be right back after a short break. Welcome back, everybody. Javier, this is a segment that we get a lot of feedback on or suggestions. This is important stuff.
Or is it?
Well, I don't know. I'm going to let you decide. Around the world, around the country, we have a lot of warning labels. We have a lot of signs. Let me throw a few out. Javier, here's one that probably is a good tip for a lot of consumers, especially a lot of men now, that are taking responsibility around the home. On a package of laundry detergent, the warning label says, remove clothing before distributing in washing machine. That could be important.
Distributing in washing machine?
Distributing before placing the clothing in the washing machine, you should remove it. That's an important tip, I think.
Uh-huh. I've known people who have walked into a car wash, okay, and they use detergent in a car wash. Now, can you fit inside a house washing machine? I have seen people inside a dryer, but I don't think you can fit in a washing machine. Why would they tell you that? I mean, who would try to climb into a washing machine with the clothes on? I mean, if you're drunk with clothes on, you can try to do a lot of things.
Yes.
But you know that you're not going to fit.
Well, what if you're in a hurry and you just need to launder your shirt and pants because you need to wear them that day? just to continue on. Yeah.
My friend, you have traveled a lot, right? I have.
Uh-huh.
If you buy one of those non-iron shirts, you can actually, the best way to wash it is put it on, get in the shower, put the soap, hang it on the hang, and next morning it's like new.
So on the laundry detergent, they should specify.
They don't. See,
and they don't.
I think it's important, but they are not specific about it. They should allow people to wear clothes in car wash. Okay.
So laundry detergent
and showers.
good
also,
for car washes and showers
and garden hoses
and garden hoses,
and sprinklers at the golf course.
But you have to take them off first before you put them in the washer.
Exactly.
Okay. So that's a good. Well, it's incomplete. They don't give you all the information.
It is. That's what's concerning about some of the labels.
Well, here's a sign in a street in Hong Kong. I've never been to Hong Kong.
Beautiful.
The sign in Hong Kong says, "Beware of people." So, when you went to Hong Kong, beautiful city, did you see any people?
A lot. A lot of people in Hong Kong.
So that's what they're probably warning you of.
Maybe somebody erased part of the message. Beware of bad people. But how do you know people are bad?
You don't.
Beware of people. I know what. People who are crossing the street. So that the message is not for you to walking on the sidewalk and watch out for the guys walking around you. It's for people driving a car, telling them beware of people on the streets.
So they're not warning you that the people could be.
No, they're very nice people. So they're not telling you that beware people because they're bad, or
because
dangerous.
there are a lot of people there.
A lot of cars. So they're telling the drivers beware of people. So that's a fair warning. If you're driving fast, beware.
Now, what if you run one over in the car? I mean, there are a lot of people. Is that okay there? Or
no,
it's acceptable?
It's not acceptable anywhere in the world.
Oh, okay. Okay. So they have to be a little more clear.
They have to be. Yeah.
Beware of people all the time.
All the time.
Okay. Good. Okay, Javier, here's one on a pair of Egyptian cotton socks. Egyptian cotton, pretty good quality with the stitching. The warning label says, "Do not wash."
You know why? Maybe it's an issue of pronunciation. Because if you say Egyptian cotton socks, then you don't want to wash them. Because you made up with nothing. So, yeah, I don't know much about Egyptian cotton. I hear it's pretty good, but
yeah, or maybe, you wear them your whole life. Once you buy them, you wear them for your life.
Maybe a competitor. Oh my God, no, sorry, we can. Maybe a competitor is letting people know that Egyptian cotton sucks. And I have trouble with English sometimes, and maybe I thought you were saying Egyptian cotton sucks. So I said, well, that's a fair warning. Don't wash them because they suck.
Okay. So they're being careful in case you don't clearly understand. Egyptian cotton sucks.
Yeah.
Could be important. Well, Javier, we've come to the end of the show.
We certainly had a good time, and we hope our listeners did too.
Maybe along the way, someone even learned something.
And remember, if you think something is
important stuff,
let us know and we will talk about it.
So, until next time, hasta la vista.